a shooting on the 600 block. My name is Brian O'Hara, B-R-I-A-N-O''H-A-R-A. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. At 6:51 p.m., Minneapolis Police received a 911 call reporting a shooting on the 600 block of 24 Avenue North. Preliminary information indicates that there was a struggle with a federal agent in front of the resident. During the struggle, the federal agent discharged his weapon, striking one adult male. The adult male then retreated inside of the residence, where he remained inside and refused to come out. Eventually, federal agents made entry into the residence, and the individual was brought to an ambulance where he has been transported to the hospital. Minneapolis police have secured the crime scene around the location, and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, as well as the FBI, are on the scene processing the evidence. There's a crowd gathered in the area, and we have called for mutual aid from the Minnesota State Patrol and Hennepin County Sheriff. The crowd is engaging in unlawful acts. They have thrown fireworks at police officers, and at multiple times, gas has been deployed. Police are attempting to disperse this unlawful assembly at this time. I urge anyone that is at the scene to leave immediately. This is already a very tense situation, and we do not need this to escalate any further. I have faith that the investigators are involved will follow every lead in this case and ensure it is completed to its logical conclusion.
There's still a lot that we don't know at this time, but what I can tell you for certain is that this is not sustainable. This is an impossible situation that our city is presently being put in. And at the same time, we are trying to find a way forward to keep people safe, to protect our neighbors, to maintain order. And we're in a position right now where we have residents that are asking the very limited number of police officers that we have to fight ICE agents on the street, to stand by their neighbors. We cannot be at a place right now in America where we have two governmental entities that are literally fighting one another. Why are we put in this position? We're put in this position because we have approximately 600 police officers in Minneapolis, far fewer that are able to work at any given time. And there are approximately 3,000 ICE agents in the area. 3,000. The 600 police officers that we have are charged on any given day with investigating crime, stopping homicides from taking place, preventing carjackings. That's the work of a police officer in a city. Meanwhile, we have ICE agents throughout creating chaos. This is not the path that we should be on right now in America. Thankfully, there's another path. And I want to talk to everybody who's out there, even people who aren't living in Minneapolis right now. Maybe you just put your kids to bed. Maybe you're cleaning up the dishes. I'm sure you love your family. There's no doubt in my mind that you love your town. Imagine if that city or that town was suddenly invaded by thousands of federal agents that do not share the values that you hold dear. Imagine if your daily routines were disrupted. The local cafe that you eat at was shut down because they're scared that their own family might get torn apart. Imagine if schools shut down and suddenly parents got to figure out what to do for daycare. This is not creating safety. It's certainly not creating safety when a huge percentage of the shootings that have taken place so far this year in Minneapolis have been by ICE. So let's be very clear. I've seen conduct from ICE that is disgusting and is intolerable. If it were your city, it would be unacceptable there too. And for anyone that is taking the bait tonight, stop. That is not helpful. Go home. We cannot counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos. And I have seen thousands of people throughout our city peacefully protesting. For those that have peacefully protested, I applaud you. For those that are taking the bait, you are not helping, and you are not helping the undocumented immigrants in our city. You are not helping the people that call this place home. ICE can leave, and this massive deployment can come to an end. We have filed litigation to hopefully make it so, and at the same time, I'm deeply concerned that we don't have that kind of time. This is already the second shooting that we've had in a week. People are scared, the atmosphere is tense, but again, there is another option. We can stop going down this route together. We'll open it to any questions.
I just wanted to see if you might be able to clear up some of the rumors that were circulating on social media that a pregnant woman and possibly a 12-year-old boy were involved in this. Is that true or not true at all?
So there were reports initially that there was more than one person shot. That is not true. There is one person that's been shot. It is a non-life-threatening injury, and they have been transported to the hospital. The remainder of the residents has been cleared. We did have one call of, I believe, a woman having an anxiety attack in the basement of the same residence, the same building. But to my understanding, no one else has been transported to the hospital.
And no children involved in this?
To my understanding, no.
DHS has said that 2 other people came out of an apartment and started attacking the officer with shovels, and that the original person that they were looking for also did that. What has your investigation told you so far?
So the question was that people had come out of the residence and attacked federal law enforcement with shovels. The understanding that we have at this time is that this incident began on 94. The individual drove towards the residence, had some sort of accident outside the residence, ran towards the house, and got into a struggle with federal law enforcement. I believe there's a broom and like a snow shovel that's on the scene. And yes, I have heard information that that some individual, at least one person, may have assaulted federal law enforcement. Yes.
Will MPD
I am not aware if that's the same person who was shot or if that's someone else.
will MPD be doing its own investigation of what happened?
The question was, will MPD be doing an investigation of what happened? I requested the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Investigation, Criminal Apprehension to respond, and they are on scene.
And you were saying that there was unlawful protesting that happened tonight. Could you be a little bit more specific?
The question was about unlawful protesting. It has absolutely become an unlawful assembly. There are individuals throwing fireworks at police officers, individuals throwing ice, rocks, other projectiles at police officers. It is well past the line, and people need to leave.
What kind of communication, if any, have you had with federal law enforcement tonight?
The question was communication with federal law enforcement tonight. That communication was all on the scene. It was primarily related to trying to ensure that we were getting medical aid because we had a report of a shooting, and then also to try and ensure that we could maintain the integrity of the crime scene so that there could be an investigation into what occurred.
Do you know what the condition of the person shot is? And we're also told that agent was injured and taken to the hospital. Do you have any updates on either condition?
I have no updates on either condition. It's my understanding that this is a non-life-threatening gunshot wound.
Can you talk about anything you know about that initial stop that started on 94, that initial chase, if you will, and anything you know about the person that they were following?
So I know nothing about the person that they were following. And then the rest of the question was about the initial chase. It's my understanding that we have some other 911 call indicating that someone from the house was calling, saying that the person in the car was running from ICE. I was driving towards the residence. That's my understanding.
Could Mayor Fry respond to criticism that local officials are contributing to rising rhetoric, and that's part of the reason why we're seeing, as you just said, protesters behaving in this way?
What rhetoric, so the question was, can I respond to rhetoric? What rhetoric?
Just says that there's rhetoric from local officials that they say has just kind of taken up the temperature of everything that's going on in Minneapolis.
So the question was, there has been the accusation that local officials have perhaps taken up the temperature in Minneapolis. First, I'll say, show me a single place where I have encouraged anything other than peace. Show me a single place where we have encouraged violence. I have said from the get-go to people in Minneapolis, do not take the bait. We are better than that. I have encouraged peaceful protest, and I'll say it again, I am inspired by the tens of thousands of people who have in fact peacefully protested and fairly documented with transparency what is taking place. That is allowed in any city in the country. And I have made it clear that to the extent people are going beyond that, and those protests are not peaceful, and the violence that the chief mentioned, it's got to stop, and you got to go home.
Two more questions.
If this situation is not sustainable, as you said a few minutes ago, where do you go from here? What options do you as mayor have from this point forward?
Yeah. So just yesterday or the day before, I'm losing track of the days here, Minneapolis, along with St. Paul and the Attorney General's office at the state, filed a lawsuit. That lawsuit outlined the duress that our city is presently experiencing and how making people safe in our city is made all the more difficult based on the presence of ICE. We are hopeful that we will succeed ultimately in that lawsuit. Of course, my concern is that yet another shooting will take place. Yet another person will be injured or killed. This is not a new concern. The chief and I have been laying this concern out for well over a month at this point. This is not sustainable. Our officers, they are working tirelessly. Again, we have about 600 officers. There's about 3,000 ICE agents in border control. We need our officers responding to the basic day-to-day 911 calls. We don't have the capacity to both deal with that and all of this conduct that we're seeing from ICE on the daily basis. You know, earlier today and yesterday, I was out on a couple of major commercial corridors in our city. People are scared. You know, there's basic rights that you should have to be able to live safely in your neighborhood, to be able to go downstairs and head to the cafe or the flower shop. The people that would normally keep up these shops, American citizens, by the way, many of them, are terrified. Because American citizens are getting picked up off the street by people in masks. That's not the way things should be conducted in any city in America. That's not who we are. That's not America. So I'm calling for peace. Everybody has a role in achieving that peace. And we're going to try to do everything that we can to keep it. Yes, our office, yes, is in touch with the governor's office, as we've been for the last week here. He has been an excellent partner in both ensuring that we have additional resources through the Minnesota State Patrol, through the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and that work will be done in partnership.
We have some breaking news, which is that Reuters is reporting, so the Reuters news agency is reporting that Donald Trump has decided he's going to attack Iran in the next 24 hours. That story, they say, is based on some Western officials And then also the BBC has a story about how the US has been withdrawing its troops from Qatar. And the significance of that is that if there were to be an attack on Iran, a possible retaliatory strike by Iran could be against American military bases in Qatar. So obviously, if you move out your military personnel from that base, there is less risk that any of them will get killed in any retaliatory strike. So lots of people, Barry, reading this as, yeah, this is it, right? There is going to be a US attack in the next 24 hours on Iran. That's from Western officials. And then this withdrawal from Qatar makes it seem likely. Do you think what's your read on this? Should we take these reports on their word?
Well, I think we had the report earlier today about the personnel being pulled out of the Al Udeid Air Base, which is the biggest US military base in the Middle East. And also, we should remember that is where Iran fired missiles at that base after the Israeli-US attack on the 12-day war last year. And now we have this reporting from Reuters. It cites 2 European officials and 1 Israeli official. So, it's convincing reporting from, a news agency that doesn't tend to get these things wrong and has very good sources in European governments and in the Israeli government. So for me, this Reuters report is the best indication we have that something may be about to happen. What is about to happen in terms of what the scope of the attack would be is completely unclear. And I think the Israeli official actually said that to Reuters. The official said that they appear to believe Trump has decided to intervene, but they don't know what the scope is going to be and when exactly it will happen. I think I had discussed with somebody else earlier as well that there are reports, and this is, accepting that the information coming out of Iran is very, very difficult to confirm. But there have been some convincing reports that the protests may be ebbing a little bit. So I think Trump's pretext, because it is a pretext, that he is going to attack Iran to help the protesters. I mean, the window for the pretext might be slightly closing, which could explain why he's moving to act quite quickly now, potentially.
Yeah, because obviously he'd said, if you shoot on the protesters, I will intervene and come to their defense. I mean, obviously the motivation for Donald Trump is not going to be to defend protesters, right? That's not why he does anything. But as you say, the pretense, that was it. But it does seem like the protests have subsided somewhat in Iran. Obviously, not because people are now suddenly super supportive of the regime, but it seems as if because the repression was quite effective. But as you say, it seems like maybe Donald Trump thinks the window of opportunity for invading, I don't know, will he be invading? I mean, what would the action look like? I mean, do you think Donald Trump wants to just take out the Ayatollah and the Islamic regime in Iran? Because what would happen then? I suppose one thing these demonstrations definitely haven't demonstrated to me is that there is some kind of cohesive alternative force either within Iran or outside of Iran that looks in any way ready to replace the Islamic Republic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're invading. Iran has a massive sort of standing military, right? I think that the Revolutionary Guards number is 120,000, 150,000, and then there are other parts of the military that are also have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of personnel. And so I think a ground invasion right now would be completely out of the equation. But it's interesting. There has been reporting that people in DC, whether they're people close to the administration or DC wonks, have started to talk about the Venezuela model, right? Which is how they see it now is the model of going in and chopping off the head of the snake, whether that's, abducting them or killing them, and then effectively using the remnants of that state as your sort of your client government, your puppet state. We don't even know, you said this to me earlier, whether or not that's worked in Venezuela yet. that you would go so far as to make it a model. But I think what they're ultimately trying to do, and I think what they've been trying to do, is to destabilize the Iranian government, to destabilize the Iranian state, because the Iranian government is actually quite good at hanging on when protests erupt. I think that this is the fifth sort of street uprising since 2009, and they've weathered all of them, and there are a lot of analysts who think that they will weather this one, that the only way that it can topple them is if the protests continue for a longer time, and if there are fractures within the political elite or the security forces. And we haven't, again, accepting the fact that it's really hard to confirm what's happening in Iran right now. We don't seem to have seen those fractures. So is Trump looking to destabilize the regime? Is Trump looking to chop the head off the snake? Again, I really don't think we know.
I mean, the fact that this has, I mean, maybe the people briefing this to Reuters are people who are leaking this, and Trump didn't want this told to the newspapers. When I see reports like this, I often think that someone in government has decided, okay, let's do some kite flying here. And if you wanted to, do what has been done in Venezuela and take out the Ayatollah, I don't know if you're going to be able to sort of land and arrest him and taking him alive, or maybe do what they did to Qasem Soleimani, which is just kill him. You wouldn't give 24 hours notice. So, if you give notice, it seems a bit more like one of those situations where they're going to do something a bit performative, like they just sort of take out a nuclear facility or some kind of military base, and then sort of say, okay, we've done that. Iran has paid a price. They'll think twice before they crack down on their protesters next time.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, these reports are coming from European officials, not American ones. I don't know what the motivation for those officials might be in speaking to Reuters. I think more significant, if that is your theory, is the clear withdrawal of personnel from the base in Qatar, which Iran would know about. And it's not just US personnel, but it's UK personnel. I think that detail of some UK personnel being withdrawn makes it more plausible that an attack is imminent in the next 24 hours, because I'm not sure that the US and the UK would have cooperated on that kind of a smokescreen. I think that the UK would withdraw its personnel because it thinks that there's a good chance of something happening there.
And I mean, we are in a situation where Trump seems a bit high on his own supply, right? I mean, he's clearly looking at what happened in Venezuela and saying, look, since Iraq, there's been this precedent that you can't just sort of click your fingers and make regime change happen. But actually, Donald Trump, I can do that, right? I can do things other people couldn't. And other people say they don't like the Islamic Republic, but I'm a man of action. And just like I did in Venezuela, I'm going to take him out. Some people will get hurt, but not many people. No Americans will get hurt. And ultimately, we're going to completely reshape the world in our image.
Was that your Donald Trump impression?
I'm not very good at Ash and Aaron have a better Donald Trump than me, but that was...
Actually, I've seen Ash do a really good one, but it was okay.
It was okay. It was
6 out of 10. No, not 5. But no, I think you're right. I think he is massively high in his own supply. And I think that, for Trump, he, in Trump's mind, and I think in Marco Rubio's mind, and in Pete Hegseth's mind, and in Stephen Miller's mind, I think they all believe that Venezuela has been a massive success already. Again, notwithstanding the fact that we don't really know how this is going to play out over the next 6 months, how this is going to play out over the next year, I think they've seen that they've cowed almost the entirety of Europe with their threats around Greenland. He's tearing up the quote-unquote, because I hate this term, rules-based international order, for all that it ever existed for everybody in the first place. It's completely torn to pieces now. And I think Trump was always somewhat unpredictable. I think he's about to become even more unpredictable. And so something may very well happen if Reuters is correct, which they often are. But we just don't know what. And it's a fool's game to try to predict what the US administration is going to do right now.
Museveni, Bobi Wine, people of Uganda, listen to me. When a government shuts down the internet 2 days before a high-stakes election, that is not public safety, that is fear. Fear of the people, fear of the youth, fear of the truth going viral on TikTok, YouTube, X, and every live stream that can expose what happens at the polling stations. The Ugandan authorities pulled the plug. No WhatsApp, no X, no connection. But who created the conditions for distrust? When the same man has ruled for 40 years, when opposition rallies are blocked and activists are jailed, when every election trend looks like a copy-paste of the last result, people do not believe your words anymore. Yoweri Museveni is terrified. He is afraid because the African youth are no longer sleeping. They are waking up to the reality of digital sovereignty. Bobi Wine, they have cut your voice because your message is a vibration that can shatter their glass palaces. To the youth of Kampala and beyond, the internet is a tool, but your resolve is a weapon. You don't need a signal to know that the time for the elders to rest has come. This isn't just an election. It's a test of our Pan-African spirit. The revolution will not be televised, and in 2026, it won't be posted. It will be lived in the streets, homeland or death. They have banned the rights groups. On the eve of the 2026 election, the state-run NGO Bureau ordered Chapter 4 Uganda and the Human Rights Network for journalists to halt their work immediately. Why? They claim these organizations are prejudicial to national security. In Africa today, there is a new phrase we must learn: internet blackout democracy. From Uganda to Ethiopia, from Sudan to the Congo, too many regimes now follow the same script. Elections come, tension rises, and suddenly the network goes dark in the name of security. They pretend this is about stopping fake news, but the real goal is to stop real news from reaching the world. Museveni, you are not the first to do this. Others shut down Facebook, blocked WhatsApp, throttled Twitter, slowed YouTube until live streams died in buffering. They say they are protecting peace, yet it is always the ruling party's narrative that remains online on state TV. When independent media, rights groups, and digital activists are silenced while the government's voice keeps broadcasting, that is not fighting disinformation. That is manufacturing one official lie. To the youth watching from Kampala's streets and the diaspora, understand, whenever you see internet shutdown trending before election results, you are not witnessing stability. You are witnessing fear management. The blackout is not a sign of strength. It is the confession of a regime that cannot trust its own citizens with a simple connection. President Museveni, let us speak plainly. A leader who trusts his mandate does not fear Wi-Fi, 4G, or live streams on YouTube and TikTok. A leader who truly believes his people are with him does not order telecoms to pull the plug on an entire nation just days before voting. When you cut the internet, you are not defending Uganda, you are defending your seat. You say you are protecting national security, but from whom? From terrorists, or from smartphone cameras, from foreign agents, or from Ugandan youth going live at polling stations, filming ballot stuffing, intimidation, and ghost voters? If your security depends on darkness, then your system is built on shadows, not legitimacy. 40 years in power is already a message to Africa. Coups, crackdowns, and now a 2026 internet blackout are adding a new chapter to that story. You can switch off Facebook, slow X, and block WhatsApp. But you cannot switch off the memory of a generation that watched you silence them in real time. Power that fears the camera is power that knows it can no longer survive the light. Bobi Wine, brother, your name now travels with hashtags, protest clips, and broken microphones. They try to box you in as just an opposition candidate, but what you represent is larger. The anger of an African youth tired of 40-year regimes and elections that feel pre-decided. When Uganda's rulers cut the internet, they were trying to cut your voice, but they also proved your point. They fear the ghetto youths you sing for, the boda riders who share your clips on WhatsApp, the university students streaming your rallies on TikTok and YouTube. That is why they turn the entire country into airplane mode before the vote. They know that in the age of smartphones, ballot box tricks and midnight counting rooms are harder to hide. Understand this. Your battle is no longer only Kampala versus State House. From Ouagadougou to Lagos, from Nairobi to Johannesburg, there is a generation watching how Uganda treats you. Your courage or your silence will send a signal across the continent. If they break you quietly, many leaders will learn they can black out, ban, and beat their opponents, and the world will move on. Ugandan youth, listen closely. When they cut your data, they think they have cut your power. But you are the real internet of this nation. Long before TikTok trends and YouTube shorts, revolutions spread from mouth to ear, from street to street. Today, a blackout slows the signal, but it cannot erase your hunger for change. Do not let the blackout convince you that you are alone. The diaspora is watching, Africa is watching, the world is watching, through VPNs, proxies, and every mirror account that refuses to go dark. They can shut down the network, but they cannot shut down your conversations, your organizing, your courage. Remember this: regimes that fear young people with phones are regimes that know their time is already ticking. When a regime shuts down the internet, it is already attacking the eyes and ears of the people. But when it also orders human rights groups and election observers to halt their workdays before the vote, it is killing the witnesses. In Uganda, 2 major NGOs were told to stop operations right as the blackout began. This is not coincidence, it is choreography. Museveni, you know exactly what you are doing. You remove the cameras, then you remove the note takers. You silence the local monitors who document intimidation, disappearances, and fraud. You push out international observers or restrict their movements, and when the results arrive, you say, there was no evidence of irregularities. Of course there is no evidence, because you banned the people whose job is to collect it. To the people of Uganda, understand this playbook. When NGOs are smeared as foreign agents and threats to sovereignty right before elections, it is usually not because they are planning a coup, it is because they might expose one. Internet off, NGOs out. That is the perfect environment for the manufacturing of peaceful election results that were written long before you cast your vote. Some will say, this is not a coup, this is constitutional. There are courts, election commissions, observers. But listen to the logic of digital dictatorship. Instead of tanks on the streets, you roll out shutdown orders to telecom companies. Instead of burning ballot boxes, you suffocate live streams and data traffic. The method is modern, but the spirit is the same. Hold power at any cost. Museveni, you have simply updated the toolbox. Where past dictators stuffed newspapers and jammed radios, you now throttle bandwidth and pull the plug on social media. To Africans watching this on YouTube after the blackout lifts, do not be fooled by the smooth language of 21st century repression. Whether it is soldiers at the broadcasting house or regulators at the internet exchange point, the goal is identical. Control what you see, what you say, and what the world hears about your struggle. Changing the tool does not change the crime. When Uganda cuts the internet, bans NGOs, harasses opposition, the statements are concerned, monitoring the situation, calling for calm, carefully chosen words that protect relationships, not rights. Museveni, you have survived this long because you understood one thing. As long as you are useful in regional security, as long as your army can be deployed in Somalia, as long as you are seen as a pillar of stability, many partners will close one eye during your elections. They will sanction loud dictators they do not need and tolerate quiet digital dictators they rely on. To Ugandans and all Africans, when you hear soft diplomatic language after a hard blackout, remember this is not neutrality, it is selective outrage. If the same internet shutdown happened in a rival state, there would be emergency sessions, televised condemnations, and threats of sanctions. But because it is an ally, they call it an internal matter. Your freedom cannot depend on how useful your ruler is to someone else's foreign policy. Uganda, your story is not isolated. In Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger, we have seen how outside powers praise stability, while our people live under fear, corruption, and foreign military footprints. In the Sahel, we rejected that script. In Kampala, you are now facing a different version of the same game, this time played with firewalls and shutdown orders instead of foreign bases. When the Alliance of Sahel States condemns operations that disrespect sovereignty, it is speaking from experience. We know how quickly security cooperation becomes a leash around a nation's neck. Uganda, your blackout shows another kind of leash, control of your digital arteries. Whether it is troops on the ground or fingers on the internet switch, the objective is the same: keep the system safe, not the citizen. From Ouagadougou to Kampala, the lesson is clear. If you let others define who is a reformer and who is a strong man, who is a partner and who is a problem, you will never build a truly free Africa. Our peoples must be the ones to decide that, and they cannot decide if their voices are cut off every election cycle. To every African leader watching Uganda, understand this clearly: the more you fear your people, the closer you move to losing your throne. When you copy the internet shutdown playbook, you may win one more election on paper, but you lose something far more important: legitimacy in the hearts of your citizens. Museveni's blackout will become a case study on YouTube, TikTok, and in every Africa breaking news documentary. How to rig perception without touching a ballot, cut the internet, silence NGOs, intimidate the opposition, then declare victory while fact checkers are blind. Do you really think history will call that leadership? You walk into the arena with the cameras on, not off. But when you treat your own youth as a threat, when your first instinct is shut down instead of dialogue, you turn your country into a pressure cooker. And pressure cookers always explode. If not today, then tomorrow. If not at the ballot box, then in the streets. My message to Bobi Wine is a warning. Do not look to Washington or Brussels for your salvation. They will cheer for you on the news, but they will never sacrifice their strategic interests for your freedom. True independence means being the master of your own house. In Burkina Faso, we broke the chains of the CFA franc and expelled the foreign military because we realized that sovereignty is not a gift from the West. It is a struggle against them. Uganda must decide. Do you want to be a sovereign nation or a resource colony for the highest bidder? The shadow is long, but it disappears when the people stand in the light of their own truth. Homeland or death? Bobi Wine, you have the heart of a lion, and you have mobilized the youth through the power of song and people power. But you are facing a machine, the NRM, that has spent 40 years turning the state into a fortress. Museveni does not see your beret as a political statement. He sees it as a target. He has traded his own revolutionary past for a pair of heavy combat boots used to crush anyone who dares to walk toward the palace. If people power is only about winning a rigged vote, it will break against the wall of Museveni's generals. But if it is about reclaiming the dignity of every Ugandan, then no internet shutdown or armored car can stop it. To the youth, do not just follow the hat, follow the ideology. The combat boots are heavy, but they are worn by men who fear the very people they are paid to protect. Homeland or death? Why does Uganda go dark? Because the infrastructure of our communication is still controlled by those who fear the people. This is digital colonialism. We rely on foreign platforms and foreign cables, and when the local puppet gets scared of a trending hashtag, he turns them off. In the Sahel, we are learning that we must reclaim our digital space. True independence in the 21st century means having the power to keep your people connected, no matter what. Museveni thinks that by cutting the fiber, he can cut the truth. He is wrong. He has only succeeded in proving that he is a dinosaur trying to survive in a digital age. To the VPN warriors, the tech-savvy youth, and the Generation Z of Uganda, your skills are now more important than your ballots. You are the digital frontline. Every time you bypass their firewalls, you are committing an act of revolution. In Uganda, you have a man who has ruled since 1986, a time when Bobi Wine was only 3 years old. President Museveni is now 81, seeking a 7th term to potentially rule for half a century. This is not leadership, it is a monument to the past. These elders are terrified of the youth because they no longer understand them. They see a mobile phone and they see a weapon. They see a digital generation and they see a threat to their stability. When a leader stays for 40 years, he stops serving the people and starts serving his own legacy. He begins to treat the nation like a private inheritance to be handed to his son. To the youth of Uganda, you are not too young to lead. You are exactly the age that the world needs right now. If the pharaohs refuse to step down, the sun will still rise, and the shadows of the old world will eventually vanish. Homeland or death. We know the pattern. When the numbers don't match the reality of the streets, the masks come off and the iron fist appears. I want to send a direct message to the Ugandan security forces. Who are you shooting? Look at the faces in the crowds. Those are your brothers. Those are the mothers who sell tomatoes in the market to pay for the very boots you are wearing. President Museveni will stay in his fortified bunker in Entebbe, but you will be the one standing in the heat and the dust. Do not follow orders that require you to spill the blood of your own kin for the sake of one man's 7th term. In the Sahel, the army and the people are becoming one body. That is our shield. In Uganda, the army is being used as a wall to protect the palace from the people. President Museveni is willing to burn the house down just to keep the key to the front door. This is not leadership, it is economic sabotage. Every hour the internet is off, mobile money, the lifeblood of African trade, is paralyzed. The mother trying to pay for medicine, the student trying to pay for school, the merchant trying to secure a shipment, they are all victims of one man's ego. People often ask me if Bobi Wine is the new Thomas Sankara. I tell them, Sankara was not made by a red beret or a protest song. He was made by his actions. He was the man who said, "He who feeds you controls you." He planted millions of trees, he vaccinated millions of children, and he dared to stand up to the global debt collectors. In Burkina Faso, our power does not come from a server in Silicon Valley. It comes from the mobilization of the people, the volunteers who defend their own neighborhoods. This is what I call the sovereignty of the street. It is the realization that a nation is not a collection of data points. It is a collection of souls. When the 2026 election results are manufactured in the dark, the street becomes the only legitimate parliament. Bobby Wine, if you want to win, you must lead the people beyond the ballot box. You must show them that their power did not vanish when the routers were unplugged. The polls in Uganda open in less than 48 hours. The wires are cut. The observers are banned. The digital world has been told to look away. The stage is set for a crime against the sovereignty of a nation. But let me tell you something that the aging pharaohs and their imperialist masters always forget. The final chapter of Africa is not written in a dark room in a palace. To President Museveni, you can stop the data, but you cannot stop the clock. Every minute you spend in a forced blackout is a minute that fuels the fire of the next generation. You are no longer fighting a political party. You are fighting time itself. To Bobi Wine, stand firm. Remember that a leader is only as strong as the people who carry him. Do not trade your revolutionary heart for a seat at a table built by your oppressors. To the youth of Uganda, you are the descendants of kings, warriors, and revolutionaries. Do not let an 81-year-old man with a kill switch tell you that you are invisible. In the Sahel, we have shown that the old Africa, the Africa of begging, of fear, and of 40-year reigns, can be defeated. We have achieved food self-sufficiency, we have reclaimed our minds, and we have looked the imperialists in the eye and said, no. Uganda, the internet may be down, but the fire is rising. Assume your revolt. Do not be pitied. We are no longer the forgotten peoples. We are the masters of our destiny. From Ouagadougou to Kampala, one message remains. La patrie ou la mort, nous vaincrons. Homeland or death, we shall overcome. Victory belongs to the people.
Thank you. John Trump imposes sweeping 25% tariffs on nations trading with Iran amid deadly protest. Crackdown by Juba Global News Network, JubaGlobal.com, Washington, D.C. January 13, 2026, in a bold escalation of economic pressure on the Islamic Republic of Iran, U.S. President Donald Trump announced on January 12 that any country conducting business with Tehran will immediately face a 25% tariff on all trade with the United States. The move, declared via a post on Truth Social, comes as Iran grapples with its most widespread and deadly anti-government protests in decades, with security forces accused of killing hundreds of demonstrators and imposing a near-total communications blackout. Effective immediately, any country doing business with the Islamic Republic of Iran will pay a tariff of 25% on any and all business being done with the United States of America, Trump wrote. This order is final and conclusive. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The announcement lacks detailed implementation guidelines, official White House documentation, or clarification on the legal basis, potentially relying on the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, AIEEPA, which Trump has used for previous broad tariffs. No exemptions or thresholds for doing business were specified, leaving open questions about whether the tariffs target only goods, services, or specific sectors like oil. The White House has not elaborated, and administration officials declined immediate comment. This tariff policy directly targets Iran's key trading partners, who have helped the regime circumvent long-standing U.S. sanctions. China remains Iran's largest partner, purchasing the bulk of its oil, often through intermediaries, and shadow fleets accounting for an estimated 90% fixes or top-up or more of Tehran's petroleum exports in recent years. Other major traders include India, the United Arab Emirates, UAE, Turkey, Iraq, and to a lesser extent, Russia and Brazil. Combined, these nations facilitate billions in annual trade with Iran, providing critical revenue amid economic collapse driven by inflation, currency devaluation, and resource mismanagement. Analysts warn the tariffs could severely disrupt global supply chains. For China, already navigating fragile post-trade war relations with the U.S., the measure risks reigniting tensions. Beijing's embassy in Washington swiftly condemned the move, stating that tariff wars and trade wars have no winners, and vowing to protect its interests. India, which doubled down on Russian oil purchases earlier in 2025 despite U.S. pressure, faces renewed scrutiny. Trump previously imposed 50% duties on Indian goods over similar issues. The UAE, a key U.S. ally hosting American military assets, could see complications in its balancing act between Washington and Tehran. The tariffs arrive against the backdrop of Iran's intensifying domestic crisis. Protests erupted in late December 2025, initially over skyrocketing food and fuel prices, water shortages, and economic despair. They quickly morphed into calls for regime change, with demonstrators chanting against Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and burning symbols of the Islamic Republic. Human rights groups report grim figures. The U.S.-based human rights activist news agency HRNA has verified at least 572 deaths, including protesters and security forces, and over 10,600 arrests. Norway-based Iran Human Rights estimates 648 fatalities, including children, with some sources suggesting the true toll could be far higher due to the internet shutdown that began January 8. Security forces, including the IRGC and Basij militia, have deployed live ammunition, tear gas, and mass detentions. Reports describe hospitals overwhelmed, morgues overflowing, and doctors threatened against treating injured protesters. Supreme Leader Khamenei has ended any notion of restraint, labeling demonstrators ruiners who must be suppressed decisively. Trump's tariff announcement follows days of escalating rhetoric. He has warned Iran against further killings, stating the U.S. is locked and loaded and prepared to intervene militarily if necessary. Briefings to the president have included options for targeted airstrikes, cyber operations, and support for protesters. On January 11, Trump revealed Iranian officials contacted him about negotiations, but cautioned that ongoing violence might force action first. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt emphasized diplomacy as the priority while affirming Trump's readiness to use force. The economic measure serves as an immediate, non-military tool to isolate Iran further. By penalizing third-party trade, it aims to choke off revenue streams that sustain the regime's proxy activities and domestic repression. Iran's economy, already battered by sanctions, faces worsened shortages. Food comprises a large portion of imports, and further restrictions could exacerbate hardship for ordinary citizens. International reactions have been swift and varied. European allies have condemned the protest crackdown but expressed concern over unilateral U.S. tariffs that could affect transatlantic trade. Russia and China, both with stakes in Iran, have offered implicit support to Tehran while criticizing Washington's approach. Israel's government, viewing any weakening of the Iranian regime favorably, has remained largely silent on the tariffs but maintains high alert amid regional tensions. Critics argue the policy risks backfiring. It could rally nationalist sentiment in Iran, strain relations with key partners like India and the UAE, and provoke retaliatory measures from China. Legal challenges loom as the U.S. Supreme Court weighs cases questioning the breadth of Trump's tariff authority under IE. As protests persist despite repression, and Trump weighs next steps including potential meetings with Iranian opposition figures, the 25% tariff stands as a clear signal the U.S. will use economic leverage aggressively to pressure Tehran, whether it hastens regime change, forces concessions. And for watching Juba, Global News Network delivers independent coverage of global events, or sparks broader confrontation, remains uncertain in this volatile moment for the Middle East. Stay informed with updates at jubaglobal.com. And I am Jasmine, and you can also call me Brooke. Please share and follow us. Back to you, John.